Hey, welcome to the Austin Bitcoin Meetup Group. My name is Michael Goldstein. I'm the president of the Satoshi Nakamoto Institute. And I want to talk a little bit today about GPG and the web of trust and why it's important to join. So first question, how many people here are familiar with PGP? So a good number of you. So I saw some hands not go up. So PGP is a sort of out-of-the-box crypto system that was developed by Phil Zimmerman in 1991 with the help of Hal Finney. And it allows people to have just an easy way to encrypt messages, decrypt messages, sign messages, and also be able to sign other people's identities. It was meant to be very easy, so anyone could download the software and suddenly they'd have strong crypto at their fingertips. And anyone could encrypt messages such that no government or other malicious group would be able to read it without their permission. So that was created in 1991. Today, most people will tend to use OpenPGP or GPG, which is made by GNU, the Free Software Foundation. It's an open source version. It's really important to get a GPG key. I would say that you are not a person until you have a GPG key. The reason being is it allows you to have an identity online. Your key or your keys represent some aspect of your online social persona. So the reason it's so important is, we talk a lot about Bitcoin as a trustless system. In a sense it is. You're able to send money to anyone in the world at your discretion, and no third party is able to interrupt that process. So there's no trusted third party. All of that risk, the counterparty risk of money issuance and payment clearance is done by this distributed kind of trustless network. However, that's in the Bitcoin system itself. So that's just the blockchain ledger, trustless nature to it. However, when you actually deal with people, when you want to send people money, you have the problem of trust with the people you're trying to interact with online. So we've seen a lot of people scam one another on the Bitcoin network. It's kind of an endless problem that goes on. Hopefully it'll, as people use more technologies like the ones I'll be talking about, as people use these technologies, a lot of these social problems will hopefully diminish. But we've seen plenty of Ponzi schemes. We've seen, exchanges like Mt. Gox run off with tons of money, and that's no good. If we want Bitcoin to work, we need to be able to know that we're sending money to the right person. We need to know that people will actually send us back the things that we purchased from them with Bitcoin. So we can guarantee the Bitcoins get to them, but not the product getting to you. So a lot of knowing other people and knowing kind of who to trust. In the real world, we don't have as much of a problem with that. We have established brands and institutions that have built up trust over a long period of time. So when you go to Walmart, you know that things will be okay, and if there's a problem, they'll be able to handle refunds all right. So anyway, so GPG comes into the picture because you can create an identity online. Your key represents you, and with this, you can sign other people's keys. So it's someone you know. So you can get a public key off a server, but you want to make sure that there wasn't a sort of man-in-the-middle attack, and you need some way of verifying these identities online. But it's also good, like I said, you get to sign messages. And when you do this, you are able to verify and authenticate that message was sent as they see it at a given time if you put it on the blockchain. And you get to verify who it was sent from and that it hasn't been changed in any way, that there's integrity in the data. So this gets to an interesting idea called GPG contracts. Really, all a GPG contract is a message that you sign that has some sort of agreement on this. So a lot of times in the real world, we imagine contracts to be sort of this enforceable thing. But we also see with crypto that a lot of this notion of enforcement is kind of an illusion. Like it's just kind of built around this idea that there's like a trusted third party that'll jump in and take care of things if there's a problem. Online, we don't have as many guarantees in life, and GPG contracts, this notion, just recognizes that and just deals with it by saying, okay, well, let's operate as if there is no enforcement. So when I make an agreement with someone, we both will sign a message, and we know that we signed and agreed on something, and then the only thing that's keeping that agreement going through is the fact that each of you want to maintain some sort of reputation. This idea came up with this essay by Mircea Popescu of Bitcoin Assets, and you can read it on the Nakamoto Institute website to get a better sense of what it means to not have enforcement and why this is actually a good idea. So once we find ourselves making these agreements with people, we want to make sure that we know what kind of people we can actually make these agreements with, who has good reputation that make it okay to want to do some sort of online or offline transaction with them. And this is where something called the web of trust comes in. So kind of the important web of trust in Bitcoin is Bitcoin OTC. So Bitcoin OTC operates on the IRC channel Bitcoin OTC. It's also used on the IRC channel Bitcoin Assets. And this is a way for, it's kind of just like an online database maintained by whoever it is that's doing this, but each person gets to verify someone else's identity. So you know that, say, right now, for instance, this is my page, Bitstein, but right now I'm not authenticated. So in fact, if someone was online saying they're Bitstein, in terms of the web of trust, there's no reason to believe that, even if it's actually me and I just haven't verified myself. But you see, people get to rate each other. So Justice has rated me a very high rating because we're good friends and we trust one another. And people get to see what kind of relationships exist. So someone would know that if they trust Justice, Justice is also vouched for me on very good terms. So they should also probably, like, dealing with me is probably a safe choice as well. Don't listen to him. Your rating's going down later. Where was I? So now, an important thing to understand with trust is these numbers. So these numbers really don't mean much. Because the notion of trust, what it means to trust another person, to want to socially interact with them, it's not something that is very tractable. It's not something you can account for very easily. So, for instance, Pierre Rochard, who is the treasurer of the Nakamoto Institute, he has given me kind of the highest rating that this community recognizes. But ultimately, this doesn't really mean much as opposed to the 8 I received here. What's really important more is the connections. John Vaghi's 8 might not be the same as an 8 I would give someone else. So when people are rating each other, you can't simply look at the number. You have to think about kind of these social connections. So I thought I'd show you. So to get started with GPG, depends on what operating system you're running. If you are on Windows, you can use GPG for Win. If you're on Mac, you can use GPG tools. And if you're on Linux, it's just GPG. So it's pretty easy to set up, and it's also pretty easy to set up a key. There's plenty of tutorials online that'll if you want to set up a whole email system with Thunderbird, Justice has made a wonderful video tutorial that covers all of that. So with a lot of these kind of web of trust things, they, as I said earlier, they kind of gather around these IRC channels. And IRC is Internet Relay Chat. It's just like an old school way of having chat communication. It's awesome. And Bitcoin Assets is a really cool one. It's full of very contrarian thinkers, such as Mircea Popescu and people like myself. And so in order to get involved with the Bitcoin OTC, you need to get on one of these IRC channels that uses a bot that connects to the Bitcoin OTC website. So what you do is set up an account on the IRC. If you go to the wiki.bitcoinassets, there's this tutorial. I won't go through all the details, but you set up an account on there. And at that point, when you get on it, so I'm on it right now. This is Bitcoin Assets. What I can do is call Gribble, which is the bot that handles this, and I can say eauth Bitstein, which is my account. And what it does is creates a one-time pad. The one-time pad is sort of like a perfectly secure cipher. And it sends it to this website, and this is based off my GPG key. So it has this message, and this GPG message, this signed one, this encrypted one, when I decrypt it, it'll have the password that only I would be able to decrypt. So if I decrypt it and send them back what was in it, the bot knows that it was actually me. So I can open up a terminal, and I have an alias that pulls this down. I'm actually pull this out so you don't see password stuff. Just watch her for now, I guess. Why is this not working? Sorry about this. Okay. So what that did is it pulled down the message and it decrypted, and I set up a thing, so it did this all in the background. And now we can open this back up, and I can say EVerify, and this down here is what was encrypted in that message. And I can send it back, and now it's authenticated. So people know that if they are talking to Bitstein on IRC, they have very good reason to believe it's actually me, because the person who they're talking to did have the private key of the public key associated with them. And if we go back to mine, I don't know how long it takes to show as authenticated.
It takes a few minutes.
What is it?
It takes a few minutes.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Anyway, eventually this will go off, and so people know that it is me. And now I can actually, we can also do commands that see what kind of relationships exist. So for instance, I'll do git trust justice command here. And this pulls up, this says level 1, so he's connected to me by an 8 rating. And there's a bunch of connections, there's 3 connections that altogether have a rating of 17. We can actually open up our graph. We can see the connections that exist between us. And so obviously we have a direct connection, so I know I can trust him. What we can also do, anyway, now that we have sort of a relationship, this would be built based on if we had already done a deal or of some sort, some agreement. But people can also start using things like LocalBitcoins or other over-the-counter methods of trading Bitcoins. The great thing about this is now it doesn't require any exchanges. So you have effectively a distributed exchange. A lot of projects in the cryptocurrency space, like, talk about how wonderful it'd be if we had a decentralized or distributed exchange, and they'll talk about getting on the blockchain. Really, the distributed exchange has existed since nearly the beginning of Bitcoin, and it's Bitcoin OTC. And LocalBitcoins is a good website for kind of hosting a lot of reputation information, and have a third party that helps with a lot of the coordination. But here we can see Justice has wonderful ratings if you ever want to buy Bitcoins from him. So people can see that he is a very trustworthy person and trusted by a lot of people. So if they get online, they know that he's someone worth buying from. Mt. Gox, for instance, would have like a the watt. So anyway, this is just a kind of a quick overview of what was that? Oh yeah. Yeah, so Justice, you can actually see Bitcoin OTC ratings on LocalBitcoins. So here's mine. This allows like another party to be able to connect to Bitcoin OTC, so you can continue. So even on LocalBitcoins, you know of this other established trust network that exists. So that's just kind of a quick overview of the web of trust and how to get on it. I guess perhaps I could show you. So GPG contract is just like a really broad concept. And websites like Mercedes, he has his own exchange, and they use a lot of GPG technology to do deals. And you can set it up in such a way that the messages can be computer readable as well, so it can contain certain types of data that the computer can handle, and it's also less vulnerable to malicious attacks because you can check all of the integrity of the data based on digital signatures. So a GPG contract would just be as simple as I will sell Justice 1 Bitcoin for 10. What was it up to? It was down. It was say 300 today. Okay, I'm not going to do that. It'd pull up a thing. It would simply, we would know that I had made such a claim, and now if I uphold it, Justice would, probably give me a good rating. And if I did not, he would give me a lower rating, and people would know how to deal with me accordingly. Yeah. So does anyone have any questions?
You showed a nation there and said how many BTC he sold and how many confirmations and stuff like that. Where does that come from? Is that just other people saying that, yeah, he did that?
So this one was based on LocalBitcoins data. So on LocalBitcoins, he has done deals, so many, over 100 transactions that totaled over 150. That is data, that's LocalBitcoins data. So in order to trust that data, you have to trust LocalBitcoins.
Maybe pull up my entry on the web of trust, Bitcoin OTC. This was just to show an example of how you can have like LocalBitcoins that can interface with the web of trust. So it's not an either or proposition. The LocalBitcoin site has a feature where you can link your Bitcoin OTC name to your LocalBitcoins profile to tie the reputation systems together. A rating from local, yeah. Yeah,
so right here we have a rating from LocalBitcoins. So we know that, I apologize if I forget his name, but the owner of LocalBitcoins has gotten on Bitcoin OTC and given him a rating of 1, which, like we said, the numbers themselves only mean so much. What means more, has more value is the fact that they gave him a positive rating, and you can also see the note that says he has 100% feedback score. So people who get on the Bitcoin OTC know that Justice is trustworthy, and someone like LocalBitcoins is a very trustworthy source. So people should have very good reason to want to do business with Justice. Probably
in general, more companies can do this. if the company is in the web of trust and they have some other relationship with their users, they can export that relationship into this web of trust. So you get the more people trust LocalBitcoins, they can trust them, they can trust those ratings. Plus, there's also the direct ratings on the web of trust itself.
Yeah. So
my question was, where does the number of BTC and confirmations come from?
That is LocalBitcoins. That's a database they have,
But that's just them saying that.
Yes. So that number.
The blockchain.
Yeah. Right. So, and this brings us back to kind of why these webs of trust are important. Is we have to be very skeptical of the types of information we see. The web of trust is a way to filter out data, any kind of information you get, to know, should I actually believe what I'm looking at? Right. So actually, Mircea describes sort of the bare bones implementation of a web of trust being just a collection of blogs of people who have good information. So it's basically saying these people, if they say something, it's probably actually worth hearing. But when you have stuff like Bitcoin OTC, now you can start incorporating sort of business transactions. But really, the important thing is to think about, in this world online where you can't trust anything, you have to assume everything is a lie. The web of trust offers this kind of filter based on these identities and their strongly encrypted messages that give you some sort of information. Example of someone who does not have good scores. This is Magical Tux. This is Mark Karpelis of Mt. Gox. So he has, this is probably very old, these ratings. He only has a -25. Today it would probably be much lower if people were still doing this. And we can see a lot of people have put negative ratings. This person, -10, which is kind of the lowest in the community, stole 30 Bitcoins from me and 770,000 Bitcoins from others. Will update rating if they make good. We're still waiting on that. Mircea gave him a -1, overly large fuckwit. So he has not done well. So people would know if they get on Bitcoin OTC.
Can we read a few more of these?
This is pathetic Judas Goat.
Can we go?
If Gox is solvent, I'll buy you a Frappuccino. Fat fuck, congrats for treating your clients like shit, asshole. This person had good things to say.
There's nothing he can do about it.
Right, so that's another good point. Is like you are stuck with your reputation. So in order for if Mark Karpelis, under his identity Magical Tux, wanted to give people reason to do business with him again, he would have to make up for a lot of bad things he's done in the past.
Could people come back and change those?
Yes, this is at any time. So the tutorial I showed here has, I guess it doesn't have it on here. This is just that there's a command where you rate. So I could do, I don't want to do it again because I'll forget what to write, like justice, but you could do rate Justice Randveer 8, which is what it is currently for me and him. And then you can add a note, and you can run that command whenever you want. As long as you're authenticated, the Gribblebot will pick it up and put it into the database.
Can you go back to Mark for a second? You see, he still has some good ratings in there.
Oh yes.
But look at the dates on them.
2011. You can go to the
Yeah,
top.
here's one of those 2012.
There's a 2011.
2011. Inbound wires were received very fast. Wow, that other one, outbound wires. So anyway, that was just like a quick introduction. Just another question?
Yeah, so when people update their comments and their rating, is there any real record of like the history of those ratings and how they may have been edited over time?
No, from my understanding, there's one entry per person, like for a rating. So, for instance, I have you as an 8 as well, John. if I did it again, and I say you messed up, and I had to bring you down to a 6, it would only show that. People would only know, unless they had saved this information before, they would only know that at this moment in time, I had rated you a 6.
Well, theoretically, there should be GPG signed messages for each of these ratings, right? So they
yes, but
exist somewhere.
Actually, I guess no, not with this, because Gribble, it just has this one-time pad authentication for communicating with it, and at that point, it'll just take the commands as is.
Right.
But of course, you could develop web of trust systems that would require these GPG signed messages.
Yeah.
So, but once again, this is just a kind of introduction to the technology and the why. And of course, if you have any questions on how to actually set some of this up, I can explain in the bookstore. So thank you.